Commander Lee Minho rubbed his tired eyes as he watched the endless streams of data flowing across his computer screens. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had been his home for 18 months now, floating in the cold darkness around Mars. Every day was the same, checking signals from distant stars, recording cosmic radiation, cataloging the occasional space rock that drifted too close to their sensors. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. The bitter taste helped him stay awake during the long night shifts. Outside the station's thick windows, Mars hung like a red marble against the star-filled blackness of space. Another quiet night, he muttered to himself, scrolling through the routine readings. Background radiation levels were normal. No unusual magnetic fluctuations. No signs of anything more exciting than a few pieces of ancient asteroid debris tumbling through the void. Then everything changed. A sharp beep from his main console made him sit up straight. The data stream suddenly exploded with activity, numbers, and symbols cascading down his screen faster than he could follow. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers, hitting the metal floor with a loud crash. "Una," he shouted across the control room. "Get over here right now." Communications Specialist Park Una looked up from the secondary array she was adjusting. She had been working on the equipment for hours, trying to improve their signal reception. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her uniform was wrinkled from crawling around the cramped maintenance spaces. "What is it?" she asked, hurrying over to his station. When she saw the data flooding his screens, her mouth fell open.
Yes.
"That's impossible." The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system, a group of planets orbiting a distant star over 1,200 light-years away from Earth. With their current technology, detecting any kind of organized signal from that distance should have been completely impossible. Yet here it was, pulsing with mathematical patterns that could only mean one thing. Intelligent life was trying to communicate with them. "Run a full diagnostic on all systems," Minho ordered, his hands shaking as he tried to isolate the signal. "Check everything twice. I need to know this isn't some kind of equipment malfunction." Una's fingers flew over her keyboard, running test after test on their communication arrays. "All systems are working perfectly," she reported. It's real." The signal was encrypted with complex mathematical codes. But even without understanding the message, they could tell it was urgent. The transmission repeated every few minutes, each time with slight variations that suggested someone was actively broadcasting, not just playing a recording. Dr. Kim Hanna arrived at the control room 30 minutes later, still wearing her sleeping clothes and looking confused. As the station's expert in alien languages and communication, she had been called in to help decode the mysterious message. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair who had spent her entire career studying theoretical alien contact scenarios. "Show me everything," she said, pulling up a chair beside Minho's workstation. For the next 3 days, Dr. Kim barely left her computer. She worked through meals, taking only short naps when exhaustion forced her to rest. The message was incredibly complex, using mathematical principles and symbolic logic that pushed the limits of human understanding. Coffee cups and empty food containers piled up around her desk as she worked. Her colleagues took turns bringing her meals and checking on her progress. The entire station held its breath, waiting to learn what the message contained. Finally, on the third day, Dr. Kim's tired face went completely white. She stared at her screen for several long minutes before speaking. "They call themselves the Zephyrian Research Collective," she said in a quiet voice. "They're scientists and explorers, just like us. But they're dying." She pulled up the translated message on the main display screen. The words appeared in simple English, but their meaning was terrifying. The Zephyrians were being hunted and killed by mechanical creatures called harvesters, machines that destroyed entire worlds to harvest their resources. "This isn't just a cry for help," Dr. Kim continued, her voice growing stronger. "They're sending us their entire database of knowledge about these machines. Technical specifications, battle tactics, even their own history and culture. They're giving us everything they know." Lieutenant Nam Ji-hoon, the station's military analyst, studied the tactical data with growing alarm. The harvesters had already destroyed 3 planets in the Zephyrian system. Billions of beings had been killed, their worlds stripped bare of all life and resources. "Look at these power readings," he said, pointing to the data. For them to send a signal this far while under attack, they had to use enormous amounts of energy. They probably sacrificed their defensive systems just to get this message to us. The control room fell silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of what they were seeing. Somewhere in the distant darkness of space, an entire civilization was being destroyed. In their final moments, they had reached out across impossible distances. Hoping that someone, somewhere, might hear their call for help, Minho stared out the window at the stars, knowing that one of those tiny points of light was home to beings who were fighting for their lives. For the first time in human history, they had received a message from another intelligent species. But instead of celebration, all he felt was the crushing weight of responsibility. Someone was asking for help, and Earth was listening. The massive conference room in Geneva buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from around the world filed in through the heavy wooden doors. Representatives from every major nation on Earth sat alongside officials from the Mars colonies, the moon research stations, and the asteroid mining facilities scattered throughout the solar system. Never before had so many important people gathered for an emergency meeting. Admiral Cho Sung-yan stood at the front of the room, his crisp blue uniform decorated with ribbons from humanity's first interstellar missions. Behind him, massive holographic screens displayed the alien message that had arrived just 2 days earlier. The translated words appeared and disappeared in an endless loop. Each repetition, a reminder of the desperate situation unfolding 1,200 light-years from Earth. The room fell silent as Admiral Cho began his briefing. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the tension underneath his calm words. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing is humanity's first contact with alien intelligence," he said, gesturing to the displays. "The beings calling themselves Zephyrians have been fighting a war for over 2 years against mechanical enemies called harvesters. These machines don't just conquer planets, they completely destroy them, taking every resource and killing every living thing." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates as new images appeared on the screens. Satellite photos showed 3 dead worlds in the Zephyrian system, their surfaces scarred and empty. Where cities and forests had once existed, only geometric patterns of destruction remained. Counselor Zhang Murray from the Mars Colonial Authority raised her hand. She was a practical woman who had spent years managing the difficult business of keeping human settlements alive in space. Her expression was troubled as she studied the tactical data. "Admiral Cho, I understand the situation is terrible, but we need to be realistic," she said. "Humanity has only been traveling between stars for a few years. Our fastest ships would need 6 months just to reach the Zephyrian system. That's assuming our experimental engines don't break down. We would be flying into a war against an enemy we know nothing about." Several other delegates nodded in agreement. The risks were enormous, and humanity had never fought a war in deep space before. But Dr. Song Woojin, Earth's most famous expert on alien life, stood up quickly to respond. He was an older man with thick glasses and wild gray hair, who had spent his entire career dreaming about the day humans would meet other intelligent beings. "Counselor Zhang, I understand your concerns, but this is exactly why we must go," he said, his voice growing passionate. "The Zephyrians aren't just asking us to save them. They're giving us information about technologies and dangers that exist beyond our solar system. If these harvester machines are spreading from star to star, they might eventually reach Earth. We need to learn about them now. We still have allies who can teach us." The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Military officers argued that humanity's small space fleet wasn't ready for interstellar combat. They pointed out that Earth's most advanced warships were designed to fight other human vessels. It's not alien machines with unknown capabilities. Scientists disagreed strongly, insisting that the knowledge gained from contact with the Zephyrians could advance human technology by hundreds of years. They argued that the data already received had revealed new principles of physics and engineering that could revolutionize human civilization. Economists raised different concerns. Calculating the massive cost of launching a rescue mission across such enormous distances, the fuel alone would cost more than most countries spent on their entire space programs. Resources that could be used to improve life on Earth would instead be spent on a mission that might fail completely as the hours passed. The arguments grew more heated. Some delegates accused others of cowardice for not wanting to help the dying aliens. Others responded that it was foolish to risk human lives for beings they had never met and might not even be able to save. Finally, Captain Lee Dong-yuk requested permission to speak. He commanded the UCS Indomitable, humanity's most advanced experimental starship, who was younger than most of the other military officers. But his reputation for successful deep space missions had earned him respect throughout the fleet. "Respected members of the Council," he began, standing tall in his black uniform. "I have spent my entire career preparing for the day when humanity would travel to distant stars. We always imagined that our first meeting with aliens would be a celebration, a peaceful exchange between civilizations exploring the galaxy together." He paused, looking around the room at the faces of the most powerful people in human space. "Instead, we're being asked to make a choice that will define what kind of species we are," he continued. "The question isn't whether our ships are fast enough or our weapons are strong enough. The question is whether we're the kind of people who travel 1,200 light years to help strangers in trouble, or whether we're the kind who find excuses to look away when help is needed." The room fell completely silent. On the screens behind him, the alien message continued its endless repetition, cry for help echoing across the vast darkness of space. When the final vote was taken, the decision was clear. Humanity would launch the largest rescue mission in its history. Admiral Cho would lead 50 ships carrying 20,000 people into the unknown, racing against time to save a civilization they had never seen. 3 weeks later, Earth's fleet would depart for the stars. The journey through the dark emptiness of space felt endless. For 6 long months, the human fleet traveled toward the distant Kepler 442 system, their ships pushing through the void at speeds that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. Inside the vessels, 20,000 people worked around the clock, preparing for a battle unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Captain Lee Dong-yuk spent most of his time in the engineering sections of his ship, working beside Chief Engineer Kang Soyoung as they tried to understand the alien technology hidden in the Zephyrian message. The technical data was incredibly complex, showing weapon designs and energy systems that seemed almost magical compared to human technology. "Look at this," Kang Soyoung said, pointing to a holographic display showing harvester ship blueprints. "Their hulls are made from some kind of self-repairing metal. When we shoot at them, the damage fixes itself within minutes." Captain Lee studied the alien designs with growing concern.
Us.
The harvester ships were not just larger and more powerful than human vessels, they were built using completely different principles. While human ships were designed by engineers who thought about efficiency and cost, harvesters seemed to have unlimited resources and no concern for individual survival. Dr. Shin Guan worked in her laboratory for 18 hours every day, trying to understand how harvester technology functioned. She was a brilliant physicist who had helped design humanity's first faster-than-light engines. But the alien science challenged everything she thought she knew about the universe. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said during one of their daily strategy meetings. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, and empty coffee cups covered her desk. "The harvesters don't think like us at all. Each ship is connected to every other ship in their fleet through some kind of quantum communication network. They're not individual vessels making independent decisions. They're all part of one giant thinking machine." Admiral Cho leaned forward in his chair, trying to understand what this meant for the coming battle. "So if we destroy one ship, does that weaken the whole fleet?" "Yes and no," Dr. Shin replied, pulling up more data on her screens. "Destroying ships reduces their total computing power, but the remaining vessels become more focused. It's like cutting off fingers from a hand. The hand becomes weaker, but more determined." As the fleet approached the Kepler 442 system, Communications Officer Yoon Tae-young began picking up long-range sensor readings that made everyone's blood run cold. The three outer planets of the system showed no signs of life at all. Their surfaces had been completely stripped away, leaving behind only bare rock and geometric patterns where continents had once existed. "Those patterns," whispered Navigator Imuna as she studied the tactical displays. "They're not random." The harvesters carved up entire worlds like they were dissecting laboratory specimens. The images were horrifying. Whole continents had been removed in perfect geometric shapes, leaving behind mathematical scars that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Rivers, mountains, forests, and cities had all been consumed, turned into raw materials for the harvester fleet. Only the fourth planet, Zephoria Prime, still showed signs of activity. But even from a distance, the human fleet could see that this world was dying too. The surface was covered with impact craters where beautiful cities had once stood. Massive harvester ships moved in slow, methodical patterns across the landscape. "Eight there." "Not just attacking the surface," reported tactical specialist Bei Hun-Su, his voice tight with anger. "Deep ground sensors show they're using mining beams to dig into underground installations. The Zephyrians have been hiding in caves and bunkers, and the harvesters are systematically hunting them down." The enemy fleet was enormous. 43 harvester vessels, each one 5 times larger than humanity's biggest warship, had arranged themselves in perfect geometric formations around Zephyria Prime. They moved with mechanical precision, their mining beams carving deeper and deeper into the planet's crust as they searched for the last survivors. "It's not warfare," Admiral Cho said quietly as he studied the tactical situation. "It's extermination. They're not trying to conquer these people, they're trying to erase them completely." The human fleet was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Their 50 ships carried advanced weapons and brave crews, but they were facing an enemy that had already destroyed 3 entire worlds. The harvesters had unlimited resources, self-repairing hulls, and a collective intelligence that could coordinate attacks across their entire fleet. But as Admiral Cho looked at the images of the dying Zephyrian world, he felt something that the harvester machines could never understand: determination born from compassion. Somewhere beneath the scarred surface of that distant planet, beings who had reached out across 1,200 light-years for help were still fighting for their lives. "All ships, this is Admiral Cho," he broadcast to the entire human fleet. His voice was calm, but filled with quiet strength. "We came here to answer a call for help from strangers we've never met. What we found is a test of everything we believe about who we are as human beings." He paused, looking out at the stars where his fleet was preparing for battle. "Today, we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. We show them that when someone calls for help, Earth is listening. And we show these machines that some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds." The battle for Zephyria Prime was about to begin. The battle began in a way that no computer could have predicted. Lieutenant Park Hae-jin sat in the cockpit of her small fighter craft, staring at the massive harvester ship that loomed ahead of her like a metal mountain floating in space. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was beating fast as she spoke into her radio. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," she said to the 11 other pilots flying beside her. "You all know what we have to do. The big ships. Sensor array is its eyes and ears. If we can blind it, the whole formation will be confused for a few minutes." The other pilots responded with quiet confirmations. They all understood that this was a one-way mission. Their small fighters carried just enough explosives to damage the harvester's sensors, but not enough fuel to escape the blast radius. "For the Zephyrians," Lieutenant Park whispered as she pushed her engines to maximum power. The 12 human fighters streaked through space like shooting stars, racing toward the enormous enemy vessel. The harvesters' defensive weapons tried to shoot them down, but the small craft were too fast and too small to hit easily. Within seconds, they had crashed into the sensor array in a series of brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness. The harvester fleet immediately began acting strangely. The perfect geometric formations that had moved with mechanical precision moments before suddenly became chaotic and confused. The ships started turning in random directions, bumping into each other as their shared intelligence tried to understand what had happened. Major Ru Jinwoo saw his opportunity. He led 3 boarding parties of Marines toward the damaged harvester ships, using small transport craft to land on their hulls. The human soldiers cut through the metal walls with plasma torches and fought their way inside. What they found was, unlike anything they had expected, the interior of the harvester ships wasn't designed for living beings at all, instead of corridors and rooms. There were endless mazes of mechanical passages filled with humming computer cores and blinking lights. The air was hot and filled with the smell of burning metal and electrical circuits. "This isn't a ship," one of the Marines reported over his radio. "It's like being inside a giant computer." The harvesters defending their vessels weren't individual robots, they were more like extensions of the ship itself, mechanical arms and sensors that moved with perfect coordination. But the human attacks had damaged their communication systems. And now the defenders moved slowly and clumsily. It's like a person trying to walk with a broken leg. Chief Engineer Kong Soyoung worked her way deeper into one of the captured ships, studying the alien technology with amazement and horror. The processing cores were incredibly advanced, but they were all connected to each other through quantum communication links that she could barely understand. "Admiral, I'm sending you data from inside their command systems," she reported through her radio. "Every time we destroy one of their ships, the remaining vessels actually become less intelligent. It's like cutting neurons from a brain. They lose processing power with each loss." Meanwhile, Dr. Shin Juan was working with a group of rescued Zephyrian scientists in one of the human ships. The aliens were tall, thin beings with large eyes and delicate hands that moved gracefully as they operated their equipment. Their leader, who called himself Veltar, spoke through a translation device that turned his musical language into understandable words. "Your tactics are causing great confusion among the harvesters," Veltar explained, his translated voice crackling through the speakers. "Their minds are designed for efficient resource collection and logical expansion. They cannot understand why your people would destroy their own ships to damage ours. Creates conflicts in their programming that they struggle to resolve." Dr. Shin listened carefully as Veltar described how the harvester collective consciousness worked. Each ship was like a single brain cell in a vast artificial mind that spanned their entire fleet. When humans acted in ways that seemed illogical, like sacrificing themselves for tactical advantage, the harvester intelligence had to dedicate enormous amounts of processing power to trying to understand why. "What if we could make them think about something truly impossible?" Dr. Shin asked. "Something that would tie up their computational resources indefinitely." Working through the night, Dr. Shin and Veltar developed a computer virus unlike anything that had ever been created. Instead of damaging computer systems directly, it would present the harvester collective mind with logical paradoxes, mathematical problems that had no solution but seemed like they should. "The virus will spread through their quantum communication network," Veltar explained. "Once it reaches their central processing cores, they will become trapped trying to solve impossible equations. Their entire fleet will become paralyzed." But there was one major problem. The virus had to be uploaded directly into the command ship at the center of the Harvester formation, the largest and most heavily defended vessel in their fleet. Admiral Cho studied the tactical situation on his command screens. The enemy ship was surrounded by layers of defensive systems and protected by dozens of smaller vessels. Any ship attempting to reach it would be destroyed long before getting close enough. "To upload the virus, it's a suicide mission," he said quietly to his staff officers. Captain Lee Dong-yuk stepped forward immediately. "Admiral, my ship has the most advanced faster-than-light drive in the fleet. The Indomitable can jump directly past their defenses." "And no," Admiral Cho interrupted, shaking his head. "If anyone is going to make this run, it should be the mission commander." As the UCS Seoul charged toward the massive harvester command ship, Admiral Cho opened a communication channel to every human vessel in the fleet. His voice was calm and steady as he spoke his final words. "All human vessels? This is your admiral? We came here as strangers answering a call for help. Today we leave as part of something bigger than ourselves." The computer virus spread through the harvester network faster than anyone had expected. Within just a few hours, the impossible mathematical problems began overwhelming the collective intelligence that controlled the entire machine fleet. Like a disease spreading through a connected computer system, the The logical paradoxes jumped from ship to ship through their quantum communication links. Captain Lee Dongyuk watched in amazement from the bridge of his ship as the massive harvester vessels began shutting down one by one. The mechanical giants that had terrorized the galaxy for years suddenly went completely silent, their weapons powering down and their engines going dark. The machines inside the ships simply stopped moving, frozen in place, as their shared consciousness collapsed under the weight of unsolvable problems. Long-range sensors are detecting something incredible, reported Communications Officer Yoon Tae-young, his voice filled with excitement. The virus isn't just affecting the ships here. We're picking up harvester fleet shutdowns across 7 different star systems. Every ship connected to their network is going offline. The victory was more complete than anyone had dared to hope. The harvester's greatest strength, their ability to share information instantly across vast distances, had become their ultimate weakness. The virus had spread to every corner of their empire in just a few hours, paralyzing machines that had been unstoppable for decades. Deep beneath the scarred surface of Zephyria Prime, the last survivors of an ancient civilization began emerging. From their underground hiding places, Feltar and his fellow scientists climbed up from bunkers and caves where they had lived in fear for over 2 years. Hardly believing that the mechanical death machines were finally silent, the Zephyrians were tall, graceful beings, with large eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Their cities had been beautiful once, filled with gardens and libraries and centers of learning. Now their world was covered with craters and scars, but they were alive, and that was enough for now. Working together, human and Zephyrian scientists quickly established the first interstellar communication network. Using advanced alien technology combined with human engineering, they began broadcasting news of the harvester defeat to civilizations throughout the galaxy. The message was simple but powerful. The machines could be stopped, and help was available. For those who needed it, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 6 months, Earth received its first official diplomatic contact from something called the Andorian Republic. The message was polite and formal, expressing gratitude for humanity's role in defeating the harvesters and requesting permission to establish peaceful relations. More messages followed quickly. The Crystalline Confederacy offered trade agreements, sharing their advanced mining techniques in exchange for human agricultural products. A dozen different species sent defense treaties, asking if humanity would help protect them if other threats emerged. Some civilizations offered to share medical knowledge, while others provided new energy technologies or manufacturing techniques. Dr. Kim Anna found herself busier than she had ever imagined possible. As the head of humanity's first xenolinguistics department, she was responsible for translating messages from dozens of different alien species. Each civilization had its own unique language, culture, and way of thinking about the universe. Some communicated through mathematical equations, others through musical tones, and a few through patterns of colored light. Every day we discover something new, she reported to Earth during one of her regular briefings. There are civilizations out there that have been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years. Others are just beginning to develop space travel like us. The diversity of life and intelligence is beyond anything we ever imagined. Colonel Kang Soyoung, now promoted to head the Joint Human-Alien Technology Exchange, worked with teams of scientists from multiple species to share knowledge and develop new technologies. The breakthroughs came one after another. Medical treatments that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries, energy systems that were clean and virtually unlimited, and manufacturing techniques that could create materials stronger than anything humans had ever made. But the most important change wasn't technological, it was how humanity saw itself and its place in the universe. The species that had once wondered if they were alone in the cosmos suddenly found themselves at the center of a vast galactic community. And they had earned their place, not through conquest or superior technology, but through their willingness to help strangers in need. The galaxy was waiting for someone to prove the harvesters could be stopped, Ambassador Veltar explained during the signing of the Human-Zephyrian Alliance Treaty. His translated words carried the weight of hope that had been building for years across countless worlds. Your species didn't just save us, You gave hope to every organic civilization in known space. Admiral Lee Dong-yuk, now commanding Earth's new Galactic Defense Fleet, stood on the observation deck of humanity's first deep space diplomatic station. The massive structure orbited Zephyria Prime, which had been rebuilt as a beautiful memorial to the day one species' call for help changed everything through the huge windows. He could see ships from 40 different civilizations docked at the station's many ports. Beings of all shapes and sizes worked together in the corridors, sharing knowledge and building friendships across species that had never met before. The station had become a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose cooperation over conflict. In his final report to Earth, Admiral Lee wrote words that would be remembered for generations. "We came here to answer a distress signal from strangers. What we found was our place in a universe much larger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. The galaxy was waiting for someone to prove that help could come from anywhere. If the right people were listening, humanity had found its purpose among the stars."